Good afternoon, everyone. Erik Horne here with Andscape's David Dennis Jr. and Bill Rhoden, and we are talking about the scandal in the NBA. Now, we had a great start to the NBA this week. We had Wemby going crazy. We had two double overtime games involving the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder. But all that is taking a back seat now to this gambling scandal in the NBA involving prominent names such as Trailblazers coach Chauncey Billups. I don't know where Terry Rozier plays right now. Where's he play right now, guys? The Miami Heat?
He was in Miami. He was in Miami.
Yeah.
Just
Just
checking.
like Chauncey was in Portland.
Scary Terry be bouncing around. Terry Rozier. And then we got a Damon Jones sighting in there, former LeBron running mate. We got the FBI grandstanding the day after Wemby's big game. The biggest question I have of all this, as all this information is pouring in about this gambling scandal, whether it's the illegal poker games that involve the mafia, or basically the sharing of information, or that's going on with coaches and players sharing information with gambling bettors, bookies and such. The big question is a simple one, in one word: why? And the why, to me, I mean, that goes from Chauncey Billups to Terry Rozier to the timing of the government and the FBI breaking this investigation. I want to start with you, David. What's your biggest why from this situation, whether that's a person or the timing or whatever we're talking about with this NBA gambling scandal?
My question is, why would anybody think that this was not going to happen? Right.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the why Chauncey Billups, why Terry Rozier, you're applying logic to a thing that doesn't totally have a ton of logic to it, which is gambling, right? Which is a thing that impacts a part of your brain that is part of addiction, right? Like, we don't ask people why they become alcoholics. We don't ask people why they become addicted to drugs. Like, this is gambling. And when you're a league that invites something like gambling into your institution, when you are anything that invites something like gambling institution, you have to work out a certain calculus. And that calculus is how much corruption of this thing are we willing to accept, right? Like, you cannot, as an NBA, as an NFL, as any sort of organization that is in line with gambling, think that you are going to have a foolproof 100% system where it won't be abused or exploited. Just like when you're going to advertise for alcohol and other things, you're not going to have a system that is completely devoid of alcoholics. Like, that's just what it is. So what we are seeing here is a situation: you can put all of the safeguards in place, you can put all the rules in place that you want. This stuff is always bound to happen once you open up the gates to this gambling stuff. And right now, for the time being, the NBA is actually pretty fortunate that we are at Portland coach and a traveling player in Terry Rozier, and this has not reached a huge scandalous level like an NBA Finals game or a superstar or something of that magnitude. If it's contained to this thing, I would say the NBA has dodged a massive bullet.
Bill, what's your why? I mean, what are you thinking of when this first comes down and from all the information that we've gathered?
You mean beside my distrust of the FBI and the government? I mean, besides that, because everything is being weaponized. I mean, there's so much to unpack. Everything is being weaponized. The Justice Department is being weaponized. The FBI is being weaponized. So they're going after, so people are targeted. Now, so there's so much to unpack here. So when I see all this, the show, the dog and pony show, the big thing, 2 days after, you're right, NBA, the timing, and we've all been through this, timing. Even in, as we pitch our stories, we said, well, what can we peg this to? Oh, we can peg this to this event. So this is peg. So that's one thing. And I think as veteran journalists, we're all taught to be a little cynical. I mean, and it's naive but true, but you're innocent until proven guilty. Now that's tough because we've all had the name. So I guess, but then, and I think I absolutely agree with you, Dennis, that once the NBA, the NFL, and the and hockey and invited these wolves, the wolf of gambling, into your house, it's only a matter of time before they get hungry and they devour you. But it was sort of the greed because, money is the highest value now with each of these legs, not integrity, not morality, but money. And so they saw, man, we're going to make a lot of money by getting in bed with DraftKings and gambling. And you're absolutely right, Dave. I mean, they should have known it's only a matter of time. They should have known that. And I think that what they felt is that, well, we could take care of it on the back end. We got programs and we'll warn the players and there's a fear of God and all that. They didn't understand, like you said, man, that these are highly competitive people and the gambling is made so easy. It's so easy that you could get, we've all covered, stories where players are gambling on planes back and forth. And you covered it, Eric. You covered the NBA. And these guys are gambling all the time. And
Constantly.
women too, right? So
You got guys that shoot around saying, here's we're gonna put this much amount of money on some free throws or some 3-pointers, stuff like that. So yeah, it's
yes,
rampant.
yeah, it's rapid. So it's not a stretch. And gambling, I don't gamble. I don't gamble.
Mhm.
But it's made so easy that if you have any type of whether it's addiction or competition, and then there's the insider information. So, like I said, there's so much to unpack, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation where we're talking about it. Because once you start writing about it, the moving finger writes and is there. So there's just a lot to unpack, man. But like I said, there's my cynicism. So many institutions being weaponized. You know, so if you want a simple answer to why, I guess to David's point, well, why not? you know,
Yeah, you're right, Bill, about, this was probably coming for a long time, and we've seen it. We've seen sprinkles of it in every sport. Whether it's college football, there was a college baseball bust a couple of years ago. Everywhere you look, with the proliferation of gambling into the mainstream, and our network very tied to gambling, ESPN Bet. There's transparency in a lot of this stuff about how closely the way we cover the games is tied to the gambling aspect of it. The lines are at the bottom of the screen when we look at this stuff. When you go into NBA locker rooms, there's a sign right there at the door that
yeah,
tells players and coaches, this is what you can and can't do when it comes to the gambling stuff. So it's not like these players and coaches don't know what's going on. I'm just curious as to, what would motivate a Chauncey Billups to allegedly be involved with this? What would motivate a Terry Rozier? A guy, Malik Beasley, for instance, a guy who is not involved in this case or has been, the allegations against him have been removed. We know what motivated him because apparently he had a lot of money issues. So to me, it's just a curiosity rather, of how these guys got involved with this allegedly, what they seek to gain from it, and how far it goes. It's a fascinating thing, but again, unfortunate timing because the NBA's gotten off to a great start, David. We can't even talk about the damn games, man.
Well, I mean, that goes to Bill's point about why now, why is this happening? And there is a reading of this of uh, an NBA that has been in 2020, 2021, or in the bubble that was very much kneeling, Black Lives Matter. That was a thorn in the side of the current administration, and you have an opportunity to say, hey, we're going to do this right at the beginning of the season, and we're going to stick it to a league that has stuck it to us. I mean, there are folks who are reading that in the tea leaves when you wonder why this happened on opening day. And of course, we're never going to get confirmation either here nor there about that. But it is a grandstanding. It is a chance to grandstand on top of something that is probably legally viable from what we've seen. Like now, I don't think that I mean, they've been going at this for 3 years. Like this has been this evidence they've been digging up this whole time. So there's not really just this belief on my end that they're making up stuff to just stick to the NBA. But if the opportunity presents itself to look at a league like the NBA and say that there's massive corruption against a league that has issues politically with folks, then why not? When you're talking about somebody like Chauncey Billups, you're talking about them, the why. I mean, it's interesting that we ask the players why get involved with gambling when the leagues, everybody else is involved with gambling. Like, I mean, I don't think that we should expect the players to have a different moral high ground when it comes to gambling than the literal billionaires who are paying their bill. The problem is the players are cut out of that pie, right? Like if I am somebody like I mean, you could take the Terry Rozier out of it and talk about some of these other players who have been like two-way contracts, 10-day players, things like that. And you have those kind of guys, and they're saying this is a billions of dollars of industry, and I am feeding into this industry, but I can't get a cut
Right.
from being the guy who's playing it. So yes, you're going to skirt those rules and try to get some of it, and then sometimes you may end up getting in trouble. And we've watched enough mafia movies. Once you're in, you're in. It's hard to get out of there. And so I don't again like I don't think that there is a logical why or a logical about all this stuff. It is just the nature of the beast of what happens when you institute gambling into something like this.
Yeah, and I think like Dave said, I mean once you invite this in, once you get in bed as a league, you say, you know what? Screw it. We're getting in bed with gambling and everything. I remember the first time I became aware of gambling. This is, I'm however old I am, but I remember Paul Horning and Alex Karras, who were the two big stars in the day. They got suspended. They got suspended for gambling. Alex Karras played for the Detroit Lions. Paul Horning played for the Green Bay Packers, and Paul Horning was the golden boy of the league, and Alex Karras was one of the big stars. And that was my first. I must have been, I don't know, 14 or 15, and I just remember seats of them, pictures of them sitting out the whole year. I said, damn, Paul Horning, Alex Karras, and so because the league was so afraid of gambling, now here we go full circle, and they're like saying, damn that, man, we're in bed with gambling. And I think what you're saying, David, is that they are relying on the players to just basically be good boys and girls and, do the right thing and ignore the fact that they're not being part of this money stream. And you're relying on my discipline as a player to not do this. And I just think it's a fool's errand. But again, we have to, when you say, well, why would Chauncey do? We don't know what Chauncey did. We don't know. We don't know what he did. If he did it, everybody knows Chauncey, vouches for his character. He's a great guy. That though I've learned a long time ago that we really don't know these guys. We spend,
Yeah, we don't know.
20 minutes in the locker room and a lot of times if they give us interviews when they're not supposed to, they're good guys. So we don't really know. But there's just a lot to unpack. But I just think that we have to maintain a healthy sense of skepticism. And David, you mentioned you're right. I mean, you have Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr publicly blasting the administration, openly campaigning for Kamala Harris. And so we know there's this revenge tour. And now the next could be the NFL because now they're pissed off about bad money. In fact, David, I want to hear you talk about that because this is sort of your power alley. They're pissed off about Bad Bunny, the most popular artist in the world, and now the Homeland Security talking about, okay, well, maybe we're going to send ICE to the Super Bowl so that's next. So, man, it's just how much is did you do it and how much is you did it, but you're being targeted. So there's a lot to unpack.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean to your point, like what you're saying, Bill, about when you're talking about the morality here of
Right.
these players, right, is Chauncey Billups' career is over.
Yeah,
Right.
right, right.
Terry
Oh,
Rozier's career, he was holding on to, by a thread anyway, but his career is over, right? And I think what's hard for the general public to sort of reconcile with is that all of these leagues are full of abusers, people who have put their hands on women, people who have been accused of sexual assault. And yet what we see over these last few years is that you put a little bit of money on a game, right? Uh, and you're done. Your career is over, right? And so letting somebody profit over a regular season game against the Chicago Bulls that's relatively meaningless
right.
is always going to carry more of a punishment than if you do something truly horrendous to somebody who's actually living, right? Like when you talk about victimless and victim crimes, like people who have victimized actual human beings who are allowed to take a 4 week break, 8 weeks off, maybe even a full year. And what we see here is the door shuts on these players if you get involved in this gambling, if you sort of ruin the sanctity of the game and the sanctity of the shield. But the sanctity of the shield should also lend itself to people who are doing, actual horrendous crimes to people. So I think that also becomes a PR nightmare when you're in the NBA or you're looking at the NBA or the NFL and you have players and they put a bet in and they're done for a year, but you put your hands on somebody, you can get a 6 week suspension or something like that. So I think that all of that is sort of blending together to create a thing of like, what is the morality here and where does the morality actually fit? Because what you're actually coming across, coming up against the fact that where is the place for morality when you're driven 100% by capitalism?
Yeah,
That's essentially what they're dealing with.
and the answer is it doesn't exist,
Right.
because the capitalism and the money again is our highest value. That's what matters. And when you start messing with our money, now you're in trouble. The other stuff you do, I mean, we saw Ray Rice, on a camera knock out his fiancee, and it's arguable that the NFL already knew it, but it's only when it became public. That okay,
Hmm.
now we got to deal with this. So I guess it puts us all in a quandary as we write about this stuff, as we report about it. Like I mentioned, you mentioned at the very beginning of the conversation, good thing this didn't happen during the NBA Finals. And well, we don't know yet.
Right,
You know,
right, yeah.
but we do know that the Super Bowl has got a target on his back, because the administration and the whole right leaning thing don't like it that you chose this guy, and that has nothing to do with what we're talking about too, the NBA, but it does go into a revenge tour, and to what level does targeting your enemies uh, play into justice? What is justice? So it's just kind of it's intriguing. I mean, it's kind of intriguing, and I guess I've always wondered, man, through all of this, how are they going to start messing with sports? Because they've been messing with every other institution. You know, how are they going to start messing with sports? And maybe this is the first thing. Remember, and I'm sorry, going on. When they were talking, when they had the big press conference, and they're saying the what do you call it, the poker,
Mm,
and they were talking about victimless crime, and somebody had lost like a, like a couple $1 million.
mm.
And I'm thinking, I mean, what clientele are we talking about,
Yeah.
man? As a victim, this guy's million, and making him into a sympathetic character.
Yeah.
Yeah. You speaking of sympathetic characters, Bill. I was reading something here from .com, ESPN.com, and it kind of a breakdown of this case. And in this particular investigation, one of the FBI people said that the sports books themselves are the victims in this case. As far as our investigation has concluded, they did not perpetrate anything unlawful. Okay, that second part may be true, but it just seems, again, going back to that moral, ethical dilemma thing we have, to call an entity a sports book entity a victim, to
Right.
me is just like, it's kind of like a microcosm of where we are as a society, that like the people who have the money here, who are being defrauded for a relatively small amount based on like the grand scheme of things, and that's not to absolve anyone of anything that they did that was illegal. It just seems funny to call a sports book a victim, because
Right.
anybody who usually enters into this gambling thing and gets down that road eventually becomes a victim of the circumstance of gambling. It's like, now, and they put the disclaimers out there like, okay, you shouldn't abuse gambling. Here's the hotline, blah blah blah. But sportsbook as victim is hilarious to me. That phrasing.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of who's a victim when it comes to gambling is really interesting, right? Because one could argue that an ad targeted to somebody who's making $50,000 and telling them that if they put $100 on this thing and encouraging them into something where there's a possibility of addiction creates a victim in that situation, right? Like we were talking about who sees alcohol ads, right? Are those people victims versus people in neighborhoods where they don't have to deal with alcohol ads, right? So that creates that slippery slope. We're asking for a victim, right? We're asking about victims. Yes, people could put on shades and do the things and steal the money from somebody and steal this amount of money, a couple $1 million from somebody who's worth $20 million, right? But what do we call somebody who is beaten down by the economic situation, socioeconomics, and looking for a way to get up out of there? And something keeps telling them that if they put their last $50 on this amount of money, that LeBron James is going to make 7 threes, that we're not also creating more victims as well. So the idea of victims, again, is where it becomes tricky when we're talking about the morality of gambling versus what we're actually doing in promoting the sport.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're victims, and how many thousands of people go to Las Vegas and come here every night? You have a lot of victims,
Yeah.
and they say, well, they're volunteer victims,
Mhm.
I mean, and what the saying is always the house always wins, right? The house always wins, so I guess, well, you're going to be a victim, but there's you're getting something out of it. So I just think this whole thing, and I guess for all of us, man, I mean, the one thing that we all like about sports is that it's unscripted.
Mm.
We kind of watch these, whether it's the Super Bowl, these games every week, and you're thinking that, hey, man, I'm watching something that's, it's not like a Broadway play where you always know the ending, that this is unscripted. So I guess what the sports league have to be really concerned about is when the public cannot trust what they're seeing. Though maybe what we're talking about, they don't give a damn if they got money on it, you know. Remember, Eric, I sent you a piece that I wrote back in 2007 about Donnie, the
Oh,
referee,
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, and that wasn't the beginning because before that we had college scandal, but that was major. And I remember at that time, the then commissioner, the late David Stern, was saying, no, 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 this is a one-off. This is not going to carry over. And Donahue was talking about all the conspiracies, and David was saying, yeah, but he's going to say anything. He's going to say anything just to get off. But as it turns out, we were warning then that, man, you better be careful because this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I guess our question this morning is whether this is just the tip of the iceberg. Is this just the beginning? And I guess that's what we're here to sort of contemplate. Is this just sort of the beginning? Was it targeted? Was it targeted and it's still just the beginning? Kind of where are we? And I guess that's sort of the question we have to, I'm wondering, is this just, what's our instinct? Is this just the beginning?
Yeah, this is, and to make things clear, we talked about kind of the grandstanding of the current regime a couple of days ago. And one of my big whys was, why do we have all these damn people out here, man? Why is everybody standing up here in the background like this? It's always funny to me when we have an FBI thing or they put the dope on the table and they got all these people in the background like this. That always cracks me up. It's like, who are you? Who are you? And who are you? We could have two people in the room talking about this and it'll be perfectly fine. But some people had to come and show face, and I guess that's how it goes when you're breaking a big case. Whatever. But another why, to me, is why all of a sudden are certain people not involved with certain cases? And I guess this leads to the whole, I know we got to be careful here, but who's snitching, y'all? Is somebody snitching? Or is anybody snitching? We got a lot of conjecture on the internet about who may or may not be snitching. But I will quote U.S. Attorney Joseph Nocella Jr., who said that co-conspirators threatened Jonte Porter into cooperating in order to clear previous gambling debts. We know people put pressure on people in debt to give information, or people who are facing a long jail term to give information in order to get off the hook so that they can get to the bigger fish. So do we think we've got some snitching going on amongst the NBA people, whether it's players, coaches, media? What do we think's going on here, y'all? Don't have to name names.
I'm gonna leave the snitch and talk to
Yeah,
Bill.
yeah. That's a little above my pay grade. I don't know. I don't know about that.
Very curious.
Great, great question. But like I said, that's a little above my pay grade. We all know if we watch Law and Order or something, people always talk. But I guess it gets back to, and this is kind of naive. Maybe after this warning shot, if you're doing it, stop. I don't care who you are. If you're doing it, stop. If you think you've been getting away with something, because you know how it is, man. In every sport, football, basketball, you could call traveling or foul on every single play. You could call holding on every single play. So everything is timing. But then sometimes you say, okay, we're going to do it now. You've been getting away with holding all game. Now, fourth quarter key play, we're going to call it now. So that didn't get to I know we're not answering your question, Erik, about who's snitching, but
And I won't answer it, so don't worry about
There
it.
you go. Because
he
you're not
won't snitch. David won't
because
snitch.
you're not snitching. That was a test. Gentlemen, I'm going to give you one brief gambling story before we go. I had some friends take me out to a casino one time in Oklahoma, WinStar Casino, kind of on the border of Oklahoma and Texas. Very large casino. It's my first time ever being in a casino as an adult in my life. I put $5 into a slot machine. I didn't win anything, and I said, "This is some bull. I'm going to the bar because I know where my money's gonna. I'm gonna get something for my money here." Okay. The point of the story is this whole gambling thing, man. It's not for me. I don't know if you guys are into the game or not. I don't know how y'all feel about putting a scratch. I'll do a scratch off at Christmas here and there.
Mm.
But how do we feel about gambling in general? I mean, you may not want to share your feelings about that either. But I don't know if y'all have any fun gambling stories that could potentially keep us employed. But that was mine. I'm just saying.
I don't know, David, you go.
Georgia's one of the few states where I can't even do the stuff if I wanted to, the FanDuel and all that stuff.
Yeah, I've
Uh,
never done that.
if I want to, so generally pretty much just stay away from it. I just think again, I just think we should be careful about how we talk about morality in these situations. Bill was talking about, well, stop. Well, I mean that's the nature of it, right? Is that you can't a lot of times, and that's how people get caught in the mix.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, we started a conversation. You talk about people are addicted, and that's no joke. Whether it's alcohol, whatever, I mean, it's an illness, you know, and the tragedy of this is whether it's NBA players, NFL players, you have probably a population of parents who are probably addicted to this stuff, and you're in the middle of it. And it's kind of like you're saying you're having all the stuff that look but don't touch.
Mhm.
And that's very difficult, So I think the clock is ticking now on all of us. But like you said at the beginning, man, we're all working for organizations who also invested in gambling, you know. So you know, I just I love sports. I love the integrity of it, the honesty of it. That's one thing I think we all have in common, and would hate to see that interfered with. But once you invite that, and this kind of gets back to what we were all saying, once as these leagues, you invite it in, you invite gambling in, this is where we are, and this is almost a natural outgrowth of where we are. So, you know, good luck. I just hope, man, in a way, maybe I will say this, get innocent till proven guilty. I hope that Chauncey is innocent. That all of them. But again, I'm not naive, but that's my hope is that somehow, this was like a nightmare he wakes up for and realizes it was just a bad dream. But right now, it is everybody's worst nightmare.
Allegedly.
Well, I mean, but like Dave said, I mean, even if you didn't do it,
Yeah, it's
I mean,
all of this is
they've already
allegation.
dismissed. They've already put Chauncey on leave. So it's almost as if your career, just by being associated with it, your career is kind of ruined. How do you come back from this?
Yeah, it's tough to fathom. I second it, Bill. I hope that these are allegations. Chauncey's people have come out and made statements. Chauncey's representation, so is Terry Rozier's. Yeah, I hope that these guys aren't as deeply involved in this as it is reported. But again, not looking great.
And
But
and maybe you could think too, I mean, as we're trying to pull lessons from this without knowing all the facts, it's kind of why, you know, we tell our kids this all the time, just watch the company you keep. And in this environment we're in, we're influencers, influencer valued. And as athletes, you're influenced. So people want you to be at certain things, was certain parties, certain events, because you attract people. You have to be, you just have to, you just have to be more careful than ever that you're not unwittingly getting into a situation that's not great because people need you there because of your name and you're going to draw people. You just have to be aware of this. And maybe, I don't know, again, that could be naive, but I just think that maybe, again, this is just another warning shot about just being aware of the company you keep. What do you think about that?
yeah, I will get y'all out of here before we get in any trouble. Thanks, David, for joining us. Thanks, Bill, for joining us. We will be back if there's anything else popping off with this investigation, and we will see you soon. Thanks for joining us. Check us out on Andscape.com.
All right. Take care.